And the button disappeared. Your object stuff.
My object, yeah. And again, that button disappeared. As I go through the workflow, you'll notice things were changing on those layouts. Yeah. So we've got one other use case here for Webdirect I want to show. And of course, I would never do this in production. I would not like give the dashboard access to the artists as well. But you know, this is for the gallery owner who can be anywhere, and she just wants to, you know, anywhere from her phone, her laptop, or iPad, be able to just get a quick feel for what's going on in the gallery. You know, and so this is, you know, feeding from the various parts of the database. You know, what have we got in inventory? How are we doing sales versus plan versus last year? Every quarter in each location, and then also who are the top artists as of, you know, this sales period. You know, what else is happening, going on? You know, if we sent any messages to artists saying, we're low on inventory, we need more work from you, or where do we have events planned in the next month? Things like that. So, another use case for Webdirect. So that's the platform.
Very impressive.
You like it?
Yes, very much so. Very visual, but it's not overly visual in that, you know, sometimes people make things too visual and you drop some of the salient points. This does a very good blend.
Yeah. You know,
and I like the drag and drop.
Yes.
And you're not using a container thing, whatever it was called.
No, this is all native FileMaker containers. No super container.
Yeah, super container. Not so super container.
Yeah. You know, so now let's like dive in a little bit and take a look at how we did some of these things. So I like to start here just because, you know, so first one thing I want to do is I want to go find a sculpture. So one thing you'll notice, I do this, and I perform this find. You'll notice, like right down here, there's one area of object visibility, right? For paintings, I just have width and height. For sculptures, I have those other dimensions of depth and weight.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so that's a very simple object visibility rule. So let's take a look at that. And right there, so you'll see, first of all, I've got that badge. It's got that little eyeball badge. That indicates that there's a visibility calculation on the object. And then it is in the inspector, just like you would expect. And the rule is always set up as a hide object when. So you have to kind of turn your thinking around a little bit and say, you know, in what case do I want this to not show up?
Yeah, visibility is the default. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so things are going to be visible unless unless a rule is true, and then you're going to hide it. You know, so in this case, if artwork type is not sculpture, hide the object. So show it when artwork type is sculpture. And this is on in the behavior area on the data tab of the inspector. And so now let's look at the really ugly part of this layout where we have what we call the status area. And so that's that area on the layout that changed depending on where we were. If it was submitted, if it was, you know, whatever the other status, you know, submitted for consideration or sold, accepted, whatever. So what we did for demo purposes is we just put this nice thing here. So this has the rule, hide object when one. Always hide this object. Never show the white block, because if I pull this out of the way, you'll see that over here is quite ugly. And the way this is set up, and the way that we've set this up, we've done the same kind of setup in the starter solutions, so you can dive in and take this apart, is that there's a group of objects that are on a slide panel, on a one-panel slide control, that group all the objects together. And so here, for example, this is the for consideration panel. And let me just pick that up and put it off to the side, and we'll take a look at it. So I can, you know, slide this somewhere just to show it to you. If I can get it to go, this is much easier when I have my full screen available. So here is the for consideration panel. So you can build these one by one, kind of off in the side. So the visibility rule, you know, visibility is like You know, it's like a tab control object. A tab control, a slide control, or a portal contain other objects.
Right.
So if I apply my visibility rule to the whole panel, I don't have to worry about grouping.
I'm not.
Okay, so what I'm saying is
it's a panel.
it's that border. So like when I click on it, I've got that eye down in the lower. So I've got the eye down in the lower right that says it's a panel, and it's the rectangle around. So I just know for a fact that on this layout, it was built that that's a. If I double click
That's
on
one of the
this,
slides.
this is a slide control that has one panel.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not, okay.
And so a slide control or a tab control contain other objects. So if I apply a visibility rule to the whole slide control or the whole tab panel, it also applies by default, but automatically to everything that's on that panel. So that I don't have to group everything, because then if I have to ungroup them, I lose my visibility rule. And this way, that calculation is evaluated once. If I were to just apply that rule to every object, then that rule is going to be evaluated once for every object that's in this panel. So it would be evaluated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 objects.
And all the little eyeballs on those different 10 objects there because it's on the panel?
No, these little these eyeballs are
they have their own.
They have their own. So this is like, so this is what changes. So once once it's for consideration, these eyeballs are things for, okay, do I want to purchase? Then show the shipping label stuff. If I'm taking it on consignment, I'm going to show something else. If I, somewhere here is there's another piece here that says, so here, if I'm declining, I need reason for declining this piece. So I've got a few other things that are going on at this status.
Sure, okay.
So that's why.
Okay. So I can still get down to the object level, even on the slide, but if I apply it at the slide level, it
automatically applies to everything. And, and so then what I've got here is, here I've got, so I basically got a separate panel here for each different status. So here, accepted and status is in transit. So when it's in transit, I just show the shipping label and say, hey, it'll get here when it gets here. And then, when it's in inventory, I have a different, it's available, I have a different panel. And then you just so you'll notice these are all transparent and they're just stacked up so that I can easily grab whichever one I need, pull it out, work on it. So you can, build them separately and then stack them up. And again, we did this, if you look at the content management starter solution, this technique is used in that starter solution. Because if you look at the content, depending on what you put into that container field, if it's a PDF or if it's a photo or if it's a QuickTime movie, you get different results in that starter solution. So that's a good example of using this same technique in something you can really pull apart and dive into. I'm going to go back and not save. So that's those. So a little bit more. So let's talk about some of the other new objects. The slide controls. Pick this one, not the field, the slide control. Come on, let me bring up the dots. Yeah. So here's how you set up a slide control. Slide controls are found up at the top. Okay, this thing, how do I get that thing to get out of my way? All right. Are under the tab object. So if I grab a tab and I hold down, I get tab control and slide control.
Oh, okay.
They're related, but you cannot turn a slide control into a tab control or vice versa. They're different object types. Right. They're just together there. But if I want to select it, I can double click it and I can just add panels by using the plus and minus. Oh, don't delete this panel. And if you want to, so a couple other things, the checkboxes to enable swipe gestures on FileMaker Go. And showing navigation dots is just to give the desktop user the ability to, flip between the navigation. And if I want to reorder, I can just pick up the dot and move it around. So now, because that's one of those questions I think I've had 3 or 4 developers right after they got FileMaker 12 call me and say, so I'm playing with that great new slide control object. How do I do that? How do I rearrange them? So that's how.
Oh, it's easy.
And you can put the same field types on there as you can for the tabs, like portals and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, at a fundamental level, the tabs, they just don't have labels. They have dots instead.
An animation,
And animation is you move between them
if you want.
if you want it. So the other thing, I want to talk a little bit about our popovers. And so popovers are, popover buttons where very common in the iOS, in the iOS idiom, where you tap on something and you get additional disclosures. So for the artist, I'm getting a link to their biography, and I've got another tab, which is basically a bunch of thumbnails or a thumbnail grid of the other artwork they have in the gallery. And they are found under the button. You can choose the popover button, and you can there are all kinds of controls for the popover button, and I'll make one later. The biggest rule about popovers is you can only have one open at a time. So if you tap on a popover, it's going to be up. If you tap on another popover, the first one is going to disappear. But again, popovers can also contain objects. You can put a portal. So for example, one of the things we did in this solution is if I go back to one of the list view layouts. If I go up to my filter here, this is a popover. And then inside this popover is actually a slide control with 3 different panels that give me the, just with no swipe and no navigation dots and no animation. So I've got a couple of fields like what am I sorted, where I first of all say how am I filtered, what have I found on, and how am I sorted, and then I can have another panel where I say here's my various filters, here are my various sorts.
I saw that before. How is the correct slide panel coming out, or how did you move between them?
So they have object names. So if I go to here, so here if I go, I don't want to do that. So if I just bring back up my slide control and I go to a different panel, I've got the different filter panels.
Right, I see that.
So now what I do in the scripting is if I tap here, and if I say show me the filters, this is a button that performs a script that goes to that object and switches the slide panel for me by using a go to object and going to the object name of the filter panel.
Okay.
And then when you tap on a filter,
Very nice. Yeah.
it sets a global field so that you see that there. And the same for the sort. Go to the sort panel, and then once you've done the sort, it just brings you back to the original panel.
So I guess could we just switch back to browse and see that function again?
Certainly. So
So
here,
when you click there,
so this is what I've got. I'm currently filtered. I'm showing only penny. I'm sorted by artist.
okay,
Or what up.
So whatever you click on there,
So if
you
I say
click on
filter,
the filter, it brings up. Got it. I see it.
show me
I see
just
it now.
sold.
Yep.
Very
Right.
nice. And
It is.
very nice use of real estate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One
I mean,
little button.
yeah. I mean, that's the
Oh,
thing
yeah.
I really
Yeah.
like about the slide control. Like this one, for navigation, it just lets me, and then here I'm using the hover state. You'll see, I can't tell if you can see, but I'm very
Yeah.
subtly coloring
Oh, yeah.
blue
Yeah.
when I'm hovering.
Right. I just missed when you switched back and forth there, how all of a sudden it was
Yeah.
trying to filter or trying to sort. I missed how that switched. So I missed that one.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I
really
think
great
that's-
for menu work. For that,
Yeah.
things like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
It just really is.
Yeah.
A lot you can do.
Yeah. So shall we build a new layout?
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go in. So we don't have, for the iPad, you'll notice if I go to my iPad things, I don't have any artist information. So I'm going to make a new layout. And I'm going to start here. The beginnings of an artist detail view, but I'm going to make a new layout. So I'm going to go into layout mode, and I'm going to grab the new layout button. And so here's the new wizard. I'm going to select a touch device. I'm going to use the artist table. I want it to be an iPad or iPad mini. This is going to be artist detail iPad. And I want landscape mode and form view. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
The FileMaker is now going to create a layout, size it for the iPad, and give me an iPad appropriate theme. And so this will give us a chance to talk about themes and styles and other things. So let me start putting some fields on here.
How do they choose a theme? Because you have more
So-
than one iPad. I guess it's
Right,
less
so
iPad.
what it does is it bases it, first of all, if you're already on a layout, it's going to base it on the same, it's going to give you the same theme for the layout. Yeah, but the iPad version, or it's going to give you an Enlightened Touch, which is the new default theme.
Mhm.
So you know, FileMaker 12, you always got cool gray as your default theme. The new default theme in FileMaker 13 is Enlightened, but if I say I'm making an iPad layout, I will automatically get Enlightened Touch, and if I say I'm making a print layout, I'll automatically get Enlightened Print.